A great battle took place on the 3rd near Sadova, resulting in the Prussians obtaining a great and complete victory. The courts of Prussia and Italy had refused the armistice asked by Austria. The mediations for peace have made no apparent progress. The military position is unchanged. Great forces are concentrating on both sides before Vienna. A treaty of peace has been signed between Austria and Prussia. The latest reports from the seat of war state that peace preliminaries between the contending powers are progressing, but no details have been received as yet. Peace was certain at Berlin on Saturday. Bismarck and the King return this week. Prussia carries all her points. The Liberals support Bismarck's foreign policy. No news today, the Nova Scotia line's down. The Atlantic cable is working well. The signal is perfect. No cable news tonight.
We have no dispatches from Europe for the readers of the Times. It appears, as we are informed, that the wheezy little steamer that brings the precious documents from Newfoundland to Cape Breton is not to arrive until sometime tomorrow morning. The public are already sharply criticizing these disappointments. If the Great Cable is working as represented, the pitch of the news in the London papers of Friday morning should have been at Port aux Basques by 9 o'clock of that day. The steamer should have done her 90 miles to Aspie Bay by 3 p.m., and the news should have been here in time for late afternoon editions. But instead of this we have for our very latest 2 lines of 10 words each, dated London last Wednesday, giving the prices of 1 or 2 stocks. If the cable stories of splendid working are true, there must have been, at least a week ago, a definite understanding between Prussia and Austria, either for peace or continued war. Why does not the cable, which works splendidly, report the result? It is of 1,000 times more value than the price of Illinois Central.
There is no political news of real importance today.
The Atlantic cable gives us this morning a meager and unsatisfactory message, dated London, August 3rd, to the effect that there is no political news of real importance. The steamship Moravian, off Father Point this night, brings intelligence that the armistice between Austria and Prussia, which expired on the 27th, would probably be renewed.
The peace conference is to be held at Prague. The preliminaries thereto, as agreed upon, are as follows. Austria is to withdraw from German Confederation, and is to lose Venetia and her part of Schleswig-Holstein. The German states north of the Main are to form union under the guidance of Prussia. No later news. Before the armistice had been extended to Bavaria, the Prussian army had moved rapidly and secured a good footing. They are forcing a paper currency upon the people.
We have financial and commercial news by the cable to Monday the 6th, reporting consols at 87 3/4, United States 520.68 1/2, and cotton declined a farthing a pound. The date of the Continental War news and a British domestic item is no longer than the 5th.
The King of Prussia has returned to Berlin. The municipality presented to him a congratulatory address. In reply, the King expressed his thanks. He pointed out that Prussia had drawn the sword, not only for her independence, but for the reorganization of Germany. The first, said the King, has been assured. The second may, by the help of God, also be obtained. Everything promises a happy future for Prussia, as an honorable and lasting peace is imminent.
The fitful flashes that made so many people doubtful as to the future utility of the ocean telegraph have been succeeded by a regular, connected, intelligible news dispatch of over a column in length, in our yesterday's issue. The immensity of the undertaking of this telegraphic connection is at once apparent from the fact that the royal speech at the opening of the Prussian chambers, spoken at Berlin about noon of Monday, the 6th, is read in the Times by New Yorkers, at their breakfast, on Thursday, the 9th of August, not 3 full days intervening. A wonderful progress indeed.
Napoleon has asked from Prussia an extension of the frontier of France.
By the cable we have news from Europe of the gravest significance. The Emperor of the French is reported to have demanded of Prussia an extension of the frontiers of France. Really, it seems as if war in Europe, now that we were led to expect peace, threatened to become an European war. On the whole, we have reason to be satisfied with ocean telegraph. The transmission of the royal speech of the Prussian king was something miraculous, and other news items we had on Saturday give us a glance, though but a furtive one, at the position of affairs in Europe.
The cable across the Gulf of St. Lawrence will be landed at 8 o'clock this evening, when communication via the Atlantic cable will be almost instantaneous between United States and Europe. The cable across the Gulf of St. Lawrence is in complete working order. The official Berlin paper opposes the claim of France for an extension of frontier. News from Vienna says there is a great excitement there. 482 men are to be tried for high treason. Crowds in the streets hailed the emperor with shouts to abdicate. The United States naval officers made an official entry into the city yesterday in the presence of 50,000 people, and were welcomed with a magnificent ovation. There was music and a great display of flags and waving handkerchiefs. The cheers were hearty, and there was great enthusiasm.
At no period, either before or during the sharp and decisive German conflict, has the situation in Europe presented a darker aspect than it does now. We have London news by the cable of today's date, we have continental reports scarcely 24 hours old. And unless we are altogether deceived as to the sources of the intelligence thus brought hither, the grand contest for position, for influence, and for permanent political ascendancy in Europe is only just opening. The quarrel, from being primarily a German, or, in a measure, a civil conflict, bids fair to develop into Gallo-Prussian war, ostensibly for the revision of a boundary line marked out barely 50 years ago, but, in reality, for the status and dignity of leadership in continental Europe. The demands for territorial compensation submitted to Prussia by the French cabinet, of which we had a positive and distinct announcement in today's telegram, are to be met, according to a semi-official Berlin journal, by a prompt refusal. These demands the Prussian organ, which speaks for Bismarck, characterizes as absurd. And the tone in which this is said as clearly indicates defiance, as any semi-official utterance from Prussia since the conflict began. Yet, whether divinely inspired or not, it is true that the year 1860 is now destined to become the most eventful for the European continent. What no one ever expected, what, indeed, no one would have believed in the early days of June, had he been told so, has actually happened. Prussia, that little kingdom, hardly more than 100 years old, with but 19 millions of inhabitants, has, by the propelling force her own power, grown to be one of the foremost powers in Europe, and takes equal rank with France and Russia. On the other hand, Austria, one of the three great continental powers, has, in the short space of 4 weeks, sunk to the level of a second-rate nation. And its emperor hooted in the streets of his own city, and met by the jovial and pleasure-loving Viennese burghers with a call to abdicate. It sounds almost like a tale of the Arabian Nights, where Aladdin's lamp built castles overnight. And France? A dispatch from London, this morning, informs us that Prussia has peremptorily refused to cede any portion of German territory to Napoleon. In this refusal Bismarck, or rather Prussia, will have the support of the whole German nation. And with more than 40 millions of people to back him, and the needle gun besides, it is not very likely that he would change his prompt and peremptory refusal into abject compliance.
Advices have been received from the continent indicating the probable renewal of the war between the Prussians and Bavarians upon the territory of the latter power, and great fears are entertained of such an event.
You will also hear that the apprehensions of France point to a too intimate understanding between Prussia and Austria. Prussia, angry at the tone taken by France, proposes to make an alliance with Austria and Italy. Their united armies would number 1.5 million, and with such a combination von Bismarck thinks he could govern not only Germany but Europe. Why not, John? Not? In any case, England will side with the strongest party. A favorite contributor to Blackwood advocates an alliance between England and America. The Anglo-Saxons, he thinks, it only firmly united, could lick creation. With an alliance offensive and defensive and a reciprocity treaty of commerce, England and America could defy the world and govern the larger half of it. It does not perhaps occur to the writer in Blackwood that America may be able to do all there is any need of in that way without England's help, and that the benefits of such an alliance would be entirely on the side of England.